War criminal and bloodthirsty terrorist Benjamin Netanyahu has become so emboldened by the American support to commit a Holocaust that he has started distributing certificates of patriotism to Americans. Surely, this dreaded Israeli terrorist can't be blamed for thinking that not Trump, but he controls the USA. The despicable creature of Polish descent, who should have been behind bars for murdering tens of thousands of children and babies, is now defining who can be called MAGA. According to him, anyone who doesn't support his savagery in Gaza, the occupied West Bank, or elsewhere in the region can't be called a true MAGA. Yes, you can't be called a patriotic American if you are not helping this terrorist cause mass starvation and genocide in Gaza. Speaking to a news outlet, terrorist Netanyahu said, and I quote, "Israel is fighting Iran, and you can't be MAGA if you are pro-Iran. You can't be MAGA if you are anti-Israel." End quote. Now, who is to be blamed for this enemy of humanity to think he actually owns the USA? After all, successive US governments have acted as poodles of Israel in recent years. We all saw how Joe Biden acted on the Gaza genocide. And no, Biden wasn't bankrolling Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza because he had become brain dead. He genuinely believed in this Israeli project. Donald Trump is no different. In fact, most US politicians feel the same way. Did the world not see the applause this war criminal received when he addressed the Congress last year? And this was after the ICC had issued an arrest warrant against him. The reaction from the MAGA support base was swift. Steve Bannon, who is widely considered to be the godfather of the MAGA movement in the US, wrote this on social media, and I quote, "American citizens do not give two Fs about your thoughts on MAGA or what our citizens need to believe. They care about exposing your pathological lies in order to keep US out of your next war." End quote. Dear Americans, this is what your corrupt politicians' thuggery and their support for a genocidal regime in Israel has reduced your image to globally. What Netanyahu is saying is that you have to be a willful participant in his savagery, animalistic behavior, pedophilia, and mass starvation of civilians to be deservedly called a patriotic American. Are you happy with that? If not, I ask you once again, what are you going to do about this? Why are you tolerating your corrupt and rogue American politicians? While your blood may not boil even at this humiliation by a terrorist from a foreign settler colony, some politicians have taken it upon themselves to wage a war on this disgusting Israeli influence on the US politics. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congressman Thomas Massie, Senators Chris Van Hollen and Jeff Merkley are some of the selected few politicians who have decided to play their part in trying to end the Israeli control of US politics. Marjorie Taylor Greene, or MTG, recently took on the powerful Israeli lobby group AIPAC, calling it an illegal organization operating on US soil. Thomas Massie has been campaigning to end US support for Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza. Van Hollen and Merkley are visiting, or at least trying their best to visit, Gaza and the occupied West Bank to document Israeli war crimes. Massie had voted in support of MTG's amendment to a bill seeking to cut funding for the Israeli military. Just 6 members, yes, 6 members supported her amendments, while 422 had opposed it. That's the control of the Israeli lobby on US elected representatives. No wonder a monster like Netanyahu has the audacity to publicly insult American voters. Talking about Van Hollen and Merkley, they are experiencing firsthand the barbarity of Israelis in Gaza. See what happened when they tried to visit Gaza in a Jordanian plane to take stock of the territory from the air. They were not allowed. Elected representatives from the US, which gives billions of dollars to Israel every year, were told to get lost. And these two politicians are neither Muslims, nor Arabs, nor brown. They are white Christian American lawmakers.
Jeff Merkley and I are here at the King Abdullah II Air Force Base in Jordan. What you see behind us are the C-130s that Jordan's been using to provide humanitarian airdrops over Gaza. You can see that Jordan is very focused on trying to make sure that they get aid to people in Gaza, whether by trucks, which is of course the most efficient way, or by air. Jeff and I wanted to go into Gaza to see firsthand the destruction, which we've seen in photographs and by eyewitness testimony. But we were denied that opportunity to go in on the ground. We are really hoping for the opportunity to fly over Gaza, to be able to witness firsthand exactly the scale of destruction in Gaza. So far, we've not been able to go. But this operation here is one part of what needs to be a worldwide effort to surge food into Gaza to stop starvation. And that's what Jeff and I have been so focused on.
Well, and speaking of a worldwide effort, in a warehouse just a distance from here, there is food from a dozen nations that are saying, we want to contribute to taking on the starvation in Gaza. And the Air Force here has done an extraordinary job in coordinating that aid, getting clearance, doing these airdrops, getting in critical food. This, of course, is not the best way to get food into Gaza. Trucks are far more efficient. They cost a lot less. But this is symbolic of how important it is to do everything possible to address the famine in Gaza. Of course, we're calling for a ceasefire. We have for a long period of time. We are calling for the return of the hostages. We met with the hostage families. The entire situation is an extraordinary catastrophe, and it needs to end. The war needs to end. The ceasefire needs to be there. The hostages need to be returned, and a vision needs to be developed to have a possibility of two states for two people, a thriving opportunity to prosper in a peaceful world for the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Yes, we need to end the war in Gaza, bring all the hostages home. That was the clear message we heard from the hostage families. In the meantime, we need to surge humanitarian aid in the Gaza. People are starving. And anybody who tells you that people are not starving in Gaza is lying to you. And it's outrageous that the United States of America at the UN was the country that voted no on a resolution saying that we need to end man-made starvation in Gaza. Anyone who denies that is lying to you.
These two US politicians also tried to visit the occupied West Bank, where Israeli terrorists have been murdering US citizens with impunity. Yes, you heard it right. Israelis have been murdering Americans at will, and no one in the Trump administration has the courage to hold the Israeli regime to account.
Well, I'm here with Jeff Merkley, Senator Merkley. This is our last stop today on the West Bank. We're in the town of Taibe, which is the only remaining Christian town on the West Bank. Not far from where we are is where violent settlers attacked the town not that long ago. And even today, you had one of these violent settlers trying to bring their herd of cows through this town, this Christian town, to intimidate the Palestinians who live here. Earlier today, we met with families of victims of violence here on the West Bank. American families. These are American citizens who were murdered on the West Bank, killed by violent settlers, in some cases killed and shot dead by the IDF, by the Israeli Defense Forces, including a 17-year-old boy whose body was riddled with bullets. And we want to get justice and accountability for those families. If we can't get justice and accountability for American citizens, God help us, because our government says that we prioritize the protection of American citizens, and yet here you have American citizens who've been murdered on the West Bank, 5 since October 2023. We need justice, not just for them, but we need to end the settler violence on the West Bank, which is where we are today. Right now, settlers are engaging in violence with absolute impunity, in fact, with the complicity of the Netanyahu government. We heard story after story about settlers essentially taking over people's olive groves and preventing them from harvesting.
It's important for Americans to understand that the villagers on the West Bank are facing continuous harassment. It can take them hours to get to work. We heard today that school had just started. It took many hours for the children to get through checkpoints to go through a school just very close by. It's extremely difficult to run a business because of the checkpoints. It is extremely difficult for people in the village to access their sources of water. We've heard about this in multiple villages. And water, of course, is essential to life and essential to agriculture. So it is important for the United States to stand for fairness and justice and to help work to break this cycle of revenge and oppression for all sides to be able to live in peace and prosperity together.
These two senators also shared their experience on the ongoing forced starvation of Palestinians in Gaza.
I'm here at Kerem Shalom Crossing, which is one of the 2 main crossings from Israel into Gaza. And the big question here, of course, is the fact that you've got very hungry people in Gaza and how much aid is actually getting through. We also met with the folks from GHF here. This is the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and made it clear to them that the idea of having only 4 sites open, mostly in the southern part of Gaza, and by the way, only 3 are open today, that is just a way to use food for population control purposes. And so we had a disagreement with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation folks. But our goal here today is to be witness to what the system is and to make sure that we can try to fix what is clearly a broken system for everybody, because there are people in Gaza who are desperately hungry and starving.
Now see the irony. The rogue regime of terrorist Netanyahu had no problem in allowing its Jewish billionaire stooge Steve Witkoff to visit Gaza. No wonder, according to him, not only is there no starvation in Gaza, but Palestinians wanted him to tell Trump that they were immensely grateful to him.
I travel all over the world. In Hostage Square, they talk about you reverentially. It's really quite amazing. I sometimes wish that I had a camcorder with me and I could put you right there as I listen to it. I was in Gaza, the first American diplomat, on your behalf, and as we delivered food and aid pursuant to your new aid initiative, pushed forth by your great Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who it is a privilege for me to work alongside. The people were applauding you. The signs were up. I mean, these are people who I just don't think you get the proper credit for it all. We are negotiating multiple entries into the Abraham Peace Accords because of your vision. Azerbaijan, all these different conflicts that we're out there on your behalf on, these are people who have never really seen the world change in this way. Peace through strength really, really works. Russia, Ukraine, Iran, Israel, Hamas, we're having meetings all this week on all 3 of those conflicts, and we hope to settle them before the end of this year. Your team is nothing short of incredible. And there's only one thing I wish for, that noble committee finally gets its act together and realizes that you are the single finest candidate since the this Nobel Award was ever talked about to receive that reward. Beyond your success is game-changing out in the world today. And I hope everybody one day wakes up and realizes that.
If Palestinians in Gaza are so happy with Trump and Netanyahu for their decision to cause a mass starvation and inflict slow and painful death on them and their children, why weren't these two American senators allowed to meet these grateful and happy Palestinians in Gaza? That's what happens when the Israeli lobby controls the US and convert American politicians into its slaves. Now you understand why the Israeli lobby in the US have begun pouring in millions of dollars to ensure the defeat of MTG, Massey, Van Hollen, Merkley and others in the coming elections who expose Israel and its dirty game. The usual suspects are the same who bankrolled millions to help ensure Trump's victory. This dirty nexus has to be broken and erased permanently. Once again, I repeat, Senators Van Hollen and Merkley are white, Christian and elected US politicians. If Israeli terrorists can stop them from entering Gaza, imagine what these bloodthirsty terrorists are doing to unarmed and defenseless Palestinians. This is the question every American must ask Trump and his cronies in power, unless, of course, Americans are happy to become a laughingstock globally. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.